Namaste. Welcome to Urban Chatterati. This is Abhinav Prakash. In the last 1 month, we have seen the scenes of unprecedented crisis that India has ever gone through when once a century pandemic struck India with its full fury. We have seen the desperate scenes of people trying to find beds, medicines, oxygen supply, and many other things, even food. And we have seen that many people across the country, especially the youth, have stepped in to provide help to these people to find beds, to find medicines, to deliver food, to enable them to locate the oxygen supply. So today we are going to discuss how the youth stepped in when the system failed. And let's say there's no other way to say, but the system did fail across the states. And this is something we cannot, turn our eyes away from. So today I have with me Varun Jhaveri, who is the ex-OSD of Ayushman Bharat. I have with me Neha Joshi from BJYM. I have with me Tehseen Poonawala from Congress Party. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abhinav.
Thank you, Abhinav.
So, okay, let's start with Varun, you, because before we go to the people who represent political party, and let's be very clear, we are not discussing the work done by the political party. We are discussing the work done by the youth activists of those political parties, and also people who are not part of any political party. So, Varun, what has been the scene in the last 1 month, and how did you get involved?
Well, I think, Abhinav, as all of us are witness to the fact that in the last 1 month, the cases have, of course, rise significantly. And, the second wave that is often referred to. So I think what really happened is that, the climb in cases that happened, very steeply. And when the climb is very steep, what it really leads to is a very, very high pressure on the existing health system. Now, it's a fairly simple, demand supply sort of an issue that when, the demand for the health system is so large and, the supply is not able to really cope up with that, it really hinders the overall existing supply. And that is exactly what has happened with India. So, with the health system under this tremendous pressure, what I personally witness is a lot of people and a lot of youth, especially across different spectrum, across different organizations, really stepping up. Really helping citizens in almost everything. Whether it's with regard to getting them a bed, helping them with medicines, with the injections, helping them find food, helping them find oxygen. And I think, for a young person to see something like that, I think that is really a very appreciated effort. So I think, a lot has been happened and I'm happy to speak about it. But I think there is one particular aspect that I want to particularly focus on is with regard to how leveraging social media and technology has been one of the foremost aspects of India's response to COVID. And this is, something that I'm not talking from the government's perspective, but I'm talking more from the common citizens' perspective. That how a lot of citizens, they have leveraged social media, they have leveraged technology, and they have reached out to citizens. If this would have probably happened before the social media revolution or before the technology revolutions, things would have been very different. And I have a plethora of examples to give. But this is something that, on a broader level, this is something that I've really found very insightful. And I'm really, very appreciative of the work that I'm witnessing, Abhinav.
Yes, Varun. In fact, we are all, we have seen certain people doing black marketing. We have seen certain people, doctors, especially, some of the doctors in places like UP were in nexus with some of the people who were doing black marketing. But we've also seen the good face of the society. So Tehseen, coming to you, yeah. You have been very active, in helping the people. I think you're right now also you're helping someone in Patna. So what has been your experience? First of all, what work has been done on the ground, and then what has been your experience in connecting to different people? This is a time when the boundaries of political ideologies, religion, everything have just went away. And it seems that the youth of India has come together to fight this pandemic.
Right. So first of all, thank you for having me, Abhinav. And I'm so happy to be on a panel with Neha and Varun because they've both been doing fantastic work themselves. And I want to take off from where Varun has left it. Yes, in a certain way, this pandemic or the second wave has brought out the best of social media, whereas people have used social media effectively, not to spread hate, but to sort of make sure that people get help. But there's always a flip side to it, and it's something that I keep thinking about, and you as a scholar will sort of understand it. What happens in the interiors where they don't have access to social media? Because Neha or me or Varun or anybody else, with our reach, or Abhinav with your reach, we amplify things and it's easier to get things done. But when somebody doesn't have help, so once this pandemic gets over, what the government of India needs to do and everybody needs to do is work on how do we bridge the technological divide between the haves and have-nots technologically. This is not a government challenge. This is an India challenge. Anybody who's in government needs to bridge that. Everybody must have access to technology so to be able to get help in the next time that our country faces a crisis. But that is the long-term thing that I'm thinking about. In the short term, I think you're absolutely right, Abhinav. I think a lot of boundaries have broken down. Yes, you see the evil, like we saw. There was a restaurant that was holding holding concentrators. We've seen some amount of fraud on social media where people sort of promise you an oxygen cylinder, take money and don't deliver. But that is minuscule compared to the good. I personally can speak, and I can that anytime I've needed anything, I've picked up the phone, not thought about it, and called up. And the other person has responded. I have not, whether they were from BJP, AAP, Congress. I think a lot of divide lines have been broken. Nobody's thought, it's a simple thing. Nobody thinks whether the plasma is of a Hindu or a Muslim, right? A plasma is plasma, right? So it doesn't matter. What matters is oxygen. What matters is we have to save a life. And I know for a fact that, and it's been through, I've called up so many people from other political ideologies, and they've answered and they've got back and they've helped. So I think it's in a way also, it's not a positive. There's nothing. I won't say it's a positive, but the good part about it is it's brought India together, at least to one extent. Youngsters have come together and said, "Look, let's get out of this. Once we get out of this, we can fight." So I think that's the situation.
Yes, that's very true. But you raised an important point about reaching the people who are in the far-flung areas. Neha, you come from Uttarakhand, which is a hilly state. Even during normal days, it's very difficult to provide help to the people who are living in the small villages in the countryside. So, what has been your experience? What has been your work in helping those people out?
Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you for having me, and great to be here with Varun and Tehseen. So, Abhinav, I always have said that what you see on social media is actually a tip of the iceberg. The work that any of us are doing on social media, one tweet to resolve that issue takes 10 phone calls, perhaps 15 WhatsApp messages, and leveraging all kinds of networks that we have. And Abhinav, I feel that this pandemic has shown that there are different kinds of privileges. Having a network is also a privilege, and that network being part of an organization. I personally, I come from BJYM. We started BJYM Cares during Poonamji's tenure last year when the pandemic struck. This time around, with Tejasvi Suryaji leading us, he sort of restarted BJYM Cares, added various dimensions like Doctors Helpline, and we sort of marched right onto it. We were able to deliver so much help because there's a rock solid network on the ground. So if somebody from Panipat requests an oxygen cylinder, that can't be done on Twitter. It takes several phone calls to a Karyakarta who's working on the ground and a certain amount of trust that Karyakarta is going to indeed deliver, because there's a certain shared value that our organization brings to the table. So that has been really important. This really has shown that having a network is such a huge privilege. Now, talking about access, I absolutely agree that, in rural areas, I constantly think of this, that the work that we're doing on Twitter or any other, social media platforms, what's happening in the rural areas. But the good thing is that this pandemic has also shown us, like Tehseen said, there's a lot that needs to be done. Let's acknowledge it and let's work towards it. But it has also shown us the kind of reach. I'll give you an example. So Aditya Raj called the other day. He tweeted about, some case who needed an ICU. And he said Dehradun. So I normally look out for everything that's coming from Uttarakhand. When I picked up the phone and called that number, it turned out that this person was actually in a district hospital in Pauri, which is in the hills. We were able to, use our local network, shift him to the Srinagar-based hospital. This was a 23-year-old boy whose life was possibly saved by that one tweet and by the fact that somebody was looking out for cases in Uttarakhand. So, it's also heartening that somewhere we are able to even reach sort of the hinterland, reach people. We get tweets from Aligarh, from Muzaffarnagar, from all over the country. So I think Digital India has made a difference. I think my faith in Digital India has and my respect for the whole idea, it's gone because we're seeing the results right in front of us. But again, access is still an issue, and a lot of work that's gone on the ground, that doesn't get enough notice because it's not happening on social media. And I'll just add one line to this, that a lot of times people feel that just because I am active on social media, or Varun is, or Tehseen is, we are the heroes. The actual heroes are people who are doing the work on the ground. The fact that I can pick up the phone and call somebody in Pur, which is in Uttarakhand, and say that remdesivir needs to be delivered, somebody in a small hospital there, and that happens, shows that there is a rock solid network that's on the ground, which may not look as glamorous as social media activists look, but they are the real strength behind all that's happening.
Yes, that's a very important point. That also brings to our notice the importance of the organizations on the ground, whether they are political organizations or social organizations, and how they can leverage their capabilities during the time of crisis to help the people. Varun, you have worked for a very long time in the Ayushman Bharat, which is the largest healthcare scheme in the world. So from your experience of handling this crisis as an individual citizen and your previous experience of working in implementing a health scheme, what lessons can we learn going forward as to how to reinforce our health infrastructure, and also to make sure that more people have access? As Tehseen is talking about, that there are many people who still don't have access to the better healthcare, also to the networks and connections.
Yeah. So, Abhinav, fantastic points made both by Tehseen and Neha. Just want to build on that. I think it's been around 35 days since I had to first tweet about a very close friend requiring a oxygen concentrator, and when I tweeted that, fortunately, because of the social media effect, I promptly got a response, and that's when I really decided that I want to get involved in this entire initiative that is happening, because at that point of time, the second wave was just starting. And I think, to the point that Tehseen, brought out with regard to, geographies having lack of access to internet. And that was something that, I thought that is something that is very, very important. And that's how I reached, the BJYM network. Fortunately, at that point of time, one very interesting thing that was getting developed was how to actually ensure that people who have COVID-like symptoms can get care at their homes. That is something which is very important. I will tell you the reason is that, let's say if there is some person who has got COVID, the immediate, sort of an expectation of that patient will be that I want to go to a hospital and get myself admitted. Now, what really happens is that if more and more people start going to the hospital, the limited hospitalization capacity that we have, it starts getting more and more burden. Also, around 98% of patients, it really do not require hospitalization. So the objective was that how to give the right sort of care to the patients who have COVID-like symptoms at their doorstep. And second, it should not require a great access to internet. And that's how this whole BJYM doctors helpline was really started. The crux of this BJYM helpline was the fact that how the BJYM was able to leverage a lot of startups which were actually working on this technology backbone. And within 1 week, the helpline was up and running. More than 500 doctors were onboarded. And a couple of weeks back, it was launched by BJYM, and now tens of thousands of patients, they have been delivered care. So, just tying back to the point that I had, pitched in earlier, is that how a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals, they are using technology. through my work at Ayushman Bharat, I have seen that technology becomes, it's a game changer, especially in the healthcare and healthcare infrastructure, particularly. The reason behind that is, the more you use the technology, the more efficiency it really brings into a health system. Whether it's with regard to, identifying which are the areas wherein there is a sort of a COVID spike, or identify where I want to deploy my resources, or helping in triaging. We saw the example of Arogya Setu, which was heavily used in the first sort of a wave. So the idea is that, how really can you leverage technology in improving the effectiveness of your health system? So I think, you asked a very particular point, Abhinav, that if there is, one big sort of a learning that I want to take, through this particular wave, is I feel that, generally health systems, they are very, very, not adaptive to inculcating technology. The reason behind that is, most of the people who are working in the health system, they are very risk averse. So they do not want to bring in new technology. They are like, whatever we are going ahead with, let's go ahead with that. But I think COVID, and especially the second wave, it represents a sort of an inflection point. How teleconsultations can really help us build efficiency, especially with regard to OPD. How digital triaging can help us improve the type of patient which needs to be hospitalized, and the type of differentiation that needs to be done. So I think one big lesson that I am taking along, and that is something that is going to shape up. We have seen in other sectors like fintech, logistics, how technology is becoming a game changer. I feel we need to work in a similar pace. How we have leveraged tech for COVID-19 mitigation. We need that across different sectors of the healthcare system. And this is something that I feel would be very important. Of course, there are various initiatives that the government is taking with regard to this. I'm happy to talk about it. But I think this is, one big lesson that I'm going to take forward.
Yes, fair point. The technology is going to be the way forward, especially if you want to provide mass healthcare to the people. Tehseen, different youth organizations, different political parties like Congress, Youth Congress has been working a lot, but they have been delivering things on the ground. What has been the work done so far by the Youth Congress, and also what has been work done by, let's say, people associated, youth associated with the party to set up like technological solutions for it, if any?
Yeah. Before I come to that, I want to take something Varun said, because I think that's very, very important. And I want to take Varun's example, practically what happened in Maharashtra. As we all know, the second wave or the Indian variant started with the Maharashtra variant, sort of the Maharashtra virus sort of mutating, the virus that came to Maharashtra, mutating. It's now and that's where the second wave really got big from Maharashtra, etc. And I think what is commendable, and I was sitting with, because I'm in Pune, and I was always interacting with the Mumbai and Pune officials, especially the BMC and Pune Municipal Corporation officials, is the use of technology. And even recently, the Honorable Supreme Court praised that on curbing the panic. So what happened, and I can talk about Mumbai and Pune, is we developed this entire telecenters where patients were, like Delhi, they were rushing to hospitals. So there was obviously a shortage to ensure that not everybody is crowding and rushing to hospitals. So what Varun was talking about is telecalling. That started happening, and telling patients to stay at home, not to rush and chock-a-block. I think the one mistake that happened in Delhi more so as opposed to Maharashtra was everybody initially wanted an oxygen bed, and Varun is right. And everybody wanted a ventilator bed. You don't need to get an oxygen or ventilator bed. In fact, a ventilator bed is detrimental to you. Your body's you don't need to be on a ventilator bed unless you actually need it. If you're healthy, you don't need to be on a ventilator and have oxygen pumped in from outside. So that Maharashtra, when Maharashtra could control that, I think, and the use of technology in sort of seeing where oxygen was real time and the ability to transport it to where it wasn't in real time with the use of technology sort of helped Maharashtra curb this. And I think now this is absolutely coming down and the situation is under check. Correspondingly, what happened in Delhi, and I'm not making it political or blaming the Delhi government, I think there was lack of technology or use of application in the second wave with regards to hospitals. So hospitals were regularly running out of oxygen. And again, Varun being the expert, Neha, and you understand about this, the minute a patient is on oxygen, on ventilator on oxygen, and you have to go on a low flow from a high flow, the patient's life is anyways in danger. So the hospitals, there was an entire week where doctors were actually breaking down, crying arranging oxygen themselves, and it was a struggle because you had bureaucrats dealing with it. And I think that sort of messed it up, because how does a DM understand everybody's in an emergency, what is priority, what isn't? And I'm not blaming the DM. I'm just saying that was a reality. So I think that was one positive of technology that Maharashtra used. And I think if other states can learn from that model of technology, it will work. Coming to your specific question on ground on what political organizations are doing, I think the IYC is doing a fantastic job. Srinivasan has been on the ground and elsewhere across the country. He's been there. He's been delivering beds, oxygen, plasma, everything. And I'm not formally a part of the Congress. I think sometimes that also works for me, because anybody I call up picks up the call and answers. Nobody cuts the call. So that also works for me. I can tell you what our foundation has been doing. And though, of course, politically, I am with the Congress and I am related to Monica and I understand all of that. But I'll tell you what we're doing. One is we sort of make sure that oxygen is available to hospitals. So what we've done is we've set up this entire, again, what Varun was talking about, this WhatsApp with the East Delhi and other hospitals, where we coordinate directly with the Delhi government. We've had 3 meetings so far, and we've been able to resolve the oxygen crisis. Now the doctors are very happy that they don't have to stand in the line for an oxygen. It was taking them 24 hours to get oxygen, and they were begging of getting oxygen from the gas dealers or the oxygen dealers. That is one part we've been able to resolve. The other thing that we've been able to do successfully is create a plasma bank where whoever needs plasma, we take their details, we send it to the bank, and within a few hours to a day, if there is a match, the person is able to get the plasma. Of course, plasma doesn't work on ventilators, but it's something that we've been able to do. I think these are 2 initiatives that we've been working on. We've created a real-time organization for where hospital beds are available. This is separate from where the government organization. So a lot of times we are successful in getting hospital beds, or somebody from BJY, like Tejinder Bagga, he's successful in getting a bed, not because they're not dependent on the government system on getting a bed. What we do is we use our system, which is independent, to call up, to verify if the bed is there, and that's real-time updates. I think the word that we need to do is governments across party lines need to come up with real-time update. By the time what you're seeing on the website and what is available are 2 different things. If you have a real-time update, which can be physically verified somehow or the other, I think that will save a lot of time of transit and a person losing his or her life looking for a bed. I think that is the real thing. Plus the fact that, like Varun said, 98% cases don't need to go to hospital. If you can stop them and keep them at home and stop that panic, you will have this under control. Believe me, you will have it under control.
Yeah, that's a very important point. Lots of people have been panicking. Yes, Neha. So coming to you, Neha, what has been your experience of working with the bureaucracy? And what lessons can we learn from how the system, and effectively, people may disagree, but I'll say system failed. India as a government, as a polity, failed to rise up to the occasion. And I say it irrespective of the political party. So, but let's not go there. Let's ask you, what lessons did you learn and what we need to do going forward?
So Abhinav, you're right. I think, in India, the kind of health infrastructure that we've created over the years clearly, wasn't ready for sort of the onslaught that we're facing today. Subsequent governments are, responsible for it. And in the last year, a lot has been done. But still, clearly it wasn't enough. As for your question about working with the bureaucracy, we see a lot of youth organizations, individuals working together, volunteering. What has also happened is that, we've also in some ways been able to affect policy, because I feel the difference between governance today and maybe perhaps 10 years back was that the system is responsive. I'll give you an example from my state. Learning from the oxygen crisis that we saw Maharashtra facing and then Delhi, we requested the government that how can we prevent this? Is there a way? Can there be a person in the hospital who assesses the demand? So, no hospitals were actually used to running at full capacity till now. So there was never a question of there being a dearth of oxygen or shortage of oxygen. A lot of these hospitals all had their private vendors who were supplying them oxygen. For instance, the Max Hospital in Dehradun was getting its oxygen from Himachal. Himachal has actually stopped supplying to other states now. So that supply has been disrupted. So, a lot of these issues were coming up. So, the government in Uttarakhand, what they did was responding to our suggestion that went from BJYM. They said every hospital has a dedicated officer who basically projects the demand for the next 24 hours. So if your vendor is not able to supply it, or the supply chain is broken for some reason, the government then takes over and says, we'll deliver it to you, but you have to tell us 24 hours in advance. And budget it such that you're running at full capacity, because most hospitals are running at full capacity. That's the truth. So, we had an unfortunate incident in Roorkee, but apart from that, things have been smooth. So we've also in some way been able to affect policy. And I think that's the way to go, that, our organizations, whether it's Youth Congress, whether it's PGYM or any other organization, the long-term impact needs to come at policy level, because as individuals, as civil society, we can only do so much. The real change is going to come when these suggestions, these ideas are implemented in governance. So I feel that India of 2021, the government is responsive. It's responsive to new ideas, suggestions, and that's working for us. And I think one reason why, even despite all of the deaths we are seeing, all of the pain that we are experiencing, we're still able to hold it together as a country. It's because one, we are resilient as a nation, and we have a government that's responsive.
Can I add something to what Neha said? Just a small thing.
Sure.
Neha compliments on what the Uttarakhand government did, and that's exactly what Mumbai and Pune did. So they had these nodal officers, and they tracked them digitally. The problem in Delhi was, so Delhi also followed this model and put nodal officers. But the problem was that the nodal officers would not answer the doctor's call. So the poor doctor is humiliated trying to get oxygen. The gas agency is not giving him the oxygen, waiting 24 or 48 hours, his van is waiting it, and the nodal officer is not bothered. Now, not every doctor, a medium-sized doctor, a small doctor is not going to be able to reach a DM. See, if Neha makes a call, or Varun makes, or I make, okay, we've also certain amount of people do know us. That's gratitude for that. So we get through people. But a small doctor who's saving lives, worried about oxygen, can't get through a DM. So I think what needs to happen is some sort of a system eventually in states, because we're a federal structure, where every DM can be connected to local hospitals via a chain, and that be monitored real time. I think if that can be some sort of a project that can come out state-wise, and then that nationally can be coordinated as a real-time clock, I think it makes it very easy. Because I just don't understand, sometimes you have oxygen lying in one state and it's not being used in the same state, it's being sent to somewhere else because there's no coordination. It's being sent 200 kilometers. India is a vast country. Like she said, Himachal is not giving Uttarakhand oxygen. I'm not getting political here. It's close by. Why should Uttarakhand get oxygen from, say, Gujarat or Maharashtra, which are far off? It's next door. So this real-time coordination with real-time monitoring and real-time authority setting, I think helps in saving life. So if that can be a next project, a mega project, small scale, and sort of then build up to a big clock, I think that will really help us in the future. And this can take us 10 years ahead.
No, but Tehseen, I mean, I'm sorry, Abhinav, I'll just make one small point. This has also exposed the private healthcare system. Why should a Max hospital that's making, or any other private hospital for that matter, that's making tons of money, even during regular times, why should they not have their own oxygen plants? Now that, we've all done some research into it and we are trying to establish oxygen plants at the government facility itself, it costs like 1.2 CR to set up a plant that will provide oxygen to 150, 200 bed hospital. How is it that these hospitals were running without oxygen plants of their own? I think that's also part of the problem, which we have to recognize and, change in future. I think that's also, this has also shown that people cannot be left to private. Healthcare is not something that you can leave to the private sector. And that's why, Ayushman Yojana, I think people have realized how Ayushman has really, really changed lives. Can you imagine all of these people right now? All hospitals are out of beds. So for a poor person, to be able to go to a Max or any other private hospital and get treatment just because he has an Ayushman card. That in itself is revolutionary. And kudos, Mr. JP Nadda and the government of the day who conceptualized this idea, because left to the private sector, we would be losing double the number of lives that we're losing today.
Okay, yeah. So we are running out of time, but Varun, you want to add something to this? And also the point raised by Neha that, we cannot leave healthcare to the private sector alone. So is there a realization among the youth today that what our parents did was not something very good?
Let me cover 2 points, Abhinav. I think, both Tehseen and Neha made very pertinent points. Tehseen talked about something that we call information asymmetry. What really happens there is, let's say, I'm just giving an example. Gangaram is running out of oxygen. Okay. The doctors in Gangaram knows it. The government does not know it because there is no information sharing system. Okay. At the same time, a citizen does not know where exactly is the bed available. That's why he needs to call 20 different hospitals and ask. And finally, probably, he needs to tweet and, go to some sort of an ad hoc mechanism. Now, imagine a system where the entire public health system and the private health system is connected on a digital health platform. The data is exchanged. The government knows what is the requirement of different hospitals. The patient knows which are the beds which are available to near me, which are the doctors which are manning those particular hospitals. And that's why there is a very silent healthcare revolution which is taking place in this country, called the National Digital Health Mission. Again, it is not something that is making news right now, but trust me, that is a sort of a game changer, because what it does is that it is bringing all the hospitals, all the doctors on a same digital platform, which will eventually help us to eradicate this information asymmetry. As a citizen, I can understand which are the nearby hospitals, who are the nearby doctors. I can get, if I voluntarily sign in, I can get the option to store my electronic medical records. And for the policymaker, we can understand what sort of data is emerging at a national level. I can understand if there is, let's say, sort of an outbreak. I can understand what is the geographical reach of that particular outbreak. So, systems are coming together. So just like how we had an Aadhaar revolution, and, the impact of Aadhaar, we only started to see after, good 8 or 9 years of Aadhaar getting stabilized. National Digital Health Mission is such a revolution that is happening. Again, it is happening very silently because it's a digital infrastructure revolution. So that is the first thing. The second point that I wanted to highlight was with regard to Neha's point of the privatization. I think, frankly, there are two models of healthcare that we have seen. The US model of extreme privatization, and probably the Norwegian model, the UK model, wherein your public health is extremely focused on. I am of the belief that we are going towards a very new India model, wherein the answer lies towards the private-public partnership, which is, the PPPs. The reason behind that is we have seen a great amount of success in PPP partnership, whether it is a digital internet revolution. What really happened there was the fact that, the government, it made the UPI, which is the digital infrastructure, a public asset. And on top of it, the private companies came and, made citizen services. I think a similar sort of model we are experiencing in the healthcare system. For me, how I see this model playing out is that the public health would be responsible for paying for services. A great example of that is Ayushman Bharat. And probably the private sector is someone who would be responsible for delivery of services. Now, public sector can be responsible for, setting some sort of a rates, setting quality benchmark. But when it comes to services, I think that is something that the private sector is able to do in a much more streamlined manner, whether it's with regard to recruitment of doctor or, rapidly augmenting infrastructure. So I feel that, you wait for next probably 5 to 6 years, the way we are going, I think we are crafting a new India's healthcare model, which is enabled by technology, which is enabled by public-private partnership. And I think that is something which is going to extremely make our health infrastructure very robust in years to come.
Yeah,
okay.
Just one point.
Yeah.
I sort of don't agree with Neha when she says that we cannot leave it in private hands. Well, of course, it should not be left in private hands. I personally believe that the private sector in this crisis has stood up. I've seen small and medium-sized hospitals doing more than they could and pushing and lifting more weight than they can. I think if anyone's been a champion more than any of us on the ground, it's been our doctors. They've been phenomenal, whether it's been government service or private. And I think that has been the key that saved India from a much larger catastrophe than India could have faced. And I've seen this in Mumbai, I've seen this in Bangalore, Pune, and Delhi. Doctors have gone out of their way to save lives. I've seen doctors not sleep for 48 hours at a time, only to ensure, and this is even private sector. And I think that's kudos.
I was only referring to the cost aspect that, that would have been another.
But the government now needs to make sure that happens. Imagine this happened in Delhi. Imagine in other states where it's not so much in focus. So that the state and central governments will need to focus on and crack the whip on that. That I agree with you, Neha. I'm on board with you on that.
Yeah, I agree. So what Neha was probably saying that we cannot leave the healthcare only to the private sector, that there has to be a public involvement like Varun was talking about. But thank you, Varun, Tehseen and Neha for wonderful discussion today. And it is very great to see people not debating on TV, but sitting on a podcast and doing a much more detailed, nuanced discussion on such topics. Thank you. Thank you, audience, for listening to us.
Thank you. Be safe. Thank you.